How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the Boredom Club podcast. So today we have a kind of a different thing for us going on. Uh, Last time Lizzie was wanting to kind of dive into true crime and some kind of conspiracy stuff about that. So today we have something kind of revolving around true crime. That was going to kind of take up the majority of the episode. We don't have that much news today or anything at all. So I'm going to hand the mic to Liz, and she's going to kind of tell you about what we have today.
Yeah, so today's episode is about the Lizzie Borden case. It's a really interesting case to me. I've watched a lot of videos about it in the past and seen a bunch of stuff on it, and it's always really interested me. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because my name's Lizzie too, but
Creepy.
yeah. But it's just interesting to me. I don't know. So without further ado, we're gonna get right into it. Lizzie Borden was born on July 19th, 1860 in Fall River, Massachusetts. Her parents were Sarah Anthony and Andrew Jackson, not the president. um, he was rich though. He was a wealthy man. He made five, let me think, 5 to 10 million in current dollars he had back then. So he was pretty wealthy back then. Um, Even though he was wealthy, he was a cheapskate. He was had his family living in a small house, none of the expensive clothes that their friends and family wore around them, and no plumbing or running water. So he was a very cheap guy. Um, and that would cause problems and resentment down the line with between him and his family. Um, Lizzie and her sister Emma would always dream to have the lavish life that their friends had. They would go to their friend's house, see how well they were dressed, and see that they had probably running water and plumbing, and see that their tea parties that they would have, and they would dream of that to have that life. It caused a lot of conflict in the household. She would come, she would come home and probably start some arguments, I'm guessing, and it was just a very, how do I say it, unsteady household.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just not a fun time in the Borden household. She would skip family dinners and not hang around anybody, not refuse to talk to people and stuff just because she was so upset with them. Uh, she only really liked her sister Emma that was living there, so yeah, it didn't seem like a very good situation for all of them, really. Um, Lizzie was a klepto, though. She would steal from local shops, and the shops would tell her father, "Hey, Lizzie stole from us," and her father would just say, "Well, just tell me what she stole, and I'll pay for it." So the shop started letting her steal because they knew she'd pay for it, that he would pay for it. So they would just let her steal for fun. And what do you think about that?
I don't know. It's kind of just how to put it. Especially, I feel her. I feel the way she feels. You know what I mean? Especially
Yeah.
when it comes to like seeing everybody else kind of have their, what do you call it, not so frugal lifestyle.
Yeah, the jealousy would definitely set in, especially when you know that you can obtain that lifestyle, but your father's just cheap and won't do it, you know? Like, it's not the fact that you're poor and you can never have that lifestyle and you're jealous of the people that have it. It's, I can have that lifestyle, but for some reason my father's depriving me of that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's what made her steal or what it
I,
was.
I don't know. I think what the stealing part about it is, especially being a not I'm not a klepto. Don't get me wrong. So like when it comes down to like not having all that stuff, you kind of just you get this feeling that you need to take what is yours because it's just, you want that little bit of extra in your life. And so the first time she probably did it, she was really nervous, didn't know what to do, you know, probably went unnoticed because she was more careful about what she was doing. And then as time went on, that's when they started to see that she stole more because she was more accustomed to it. She just take it, you know. I do it all the time, kind of thing, kind of mindset stuck in. And so it's just a part of her life that she would do that. That's what a lot of kleptos, especially during this time period, were like. They would just do it because it's a part of life for them somehow or some way.
Yeah. Another thing that her father did that caused problems was that he started giving away real estate and money to random family members, which, caused more resentment with Lizzie because she said he didn't care about his direct family and giving them the lavish life that they wanted. Like we could have all this, but you're just giving it away. It's just something she just could not understand. So that's like her upbringing. That's how she was, a little taste of who she is as a person and who her family is, I guess you can say. But that brings us to August 4th, 1892. Um, Emma, her sister, was out of town, so the only people in the house that day were Lizzie, her stepmom Abby, which Lizzie hated also because she said that her stepmom was just money hungry and that's the only reason she married her dad and blah 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 blah. Her dad Andrew was there. Their maid Bridget, who was aka Maggie, they would call her Maggie because their last maid was named Maggie and they couldn't bother remembering Bridget's real name. So they would just call her Maggie too, which kind of gives you a little bit of more of a taste of who they are as people, I think.
Yeah, I can see that, especially in older time families.
Yeah. Their Uncle John was there who had come to stay with them for a while. Leading up to August 4th, the family had been sick for a few days due to soup that the family had been eating on for 4 days straight. So,
That's what gets me is they were getting sick on soup that they've been eating 4 days straight. Because I've been there, not sick, but it just goes to show, like, not that you can get sick. Oh man, they've been eating soup for 4 days. I've eaten soup for 4 days. Like you, I don't know if you guys ever had it, but when your mom makes a huge pot of soup, that pot of soup stays in the fridge for like a whole week, and you're like, what do I want? We got soup. I'll have a bowl of soup. It's day 4, and you just have a bowl of soup. You know what I mean? And so what gets me is this more of like a hunter's stew kind of situation where they like because hunter stew is like it boils on the pot, you add water to it and add ingredients throughout the week, throughout the month, and it's constant. It's always going, and you eat from it. Is it one of those, or is it that they made this soup with such cheaply and kind of old ingredients that it went bad early, and since they a normal plan to eat it for a week turned into they were getting sick on it?
I think it was just they made bad soup because they had only been eating on it for 4 days, and those 4 days they had been sick.
Yeah.
So, but that kind of goes to show you how cheap their dad is, again, because if you're getting sick off this soup, wouldn't you stop eating it?
Yeah.
But he
He refused
was,
to do anything else, so he's like, just eat the soup. It's good for you. Raw.
yeah, I mean, and he has the money. He could have went and got more groceries and stuff, but instead they're like, no, we're just gonna eat all the soup we made, even though we're all getting sick off of it. Um, Uncle John had went out to buy 2 oxen. Abby, the stepmom, had went upstairs to clean the guest bedroom that Uncle John was staying in. Bridget was cleaning. Lizzie was in her room ironing clothes, and the dad left with the uncle to take a walk around the neighborhood because he had a lot of real estate and stuff. So he would take daily walks out into the neighborhood to just check on everything. The dad comes back home though, without the uncle to take a nap on the couch. Since they had all been sick, he decided, hey, I'm going to take a nap for a while, so he lays down on the couch to take a nap. Later on, Lizzie comes out of the house screaming, saying her dad has died. The neighbor finds her, figures out what's wrong, comes inside the house with Lizzie to find Andrew with 10 to 15 blows to the head with an apparent axe wounds. So that's crazy to stumble upon. I'd hate to be that neighbor.
Yeah, I know. Especially like I could just see it now because we kind of live more country style, so it's like, especially since I've seen where this house is. Imagine you're out, you got your gloves, you got your hat on, you're about to go trim your petunias, and you're like, man, it's gonna be a great day. It's pretty, birds are chirping, sun's out, and then just, wow, everybody's dead. It's like, what? And then there's this girl just screaming out there that people are dead. And did the neighbor go inside?
Yeah, the neighbor went inside with Lizzie.
Dude, that's a W neighbor. Like, I don't know anybody that would just be like, everybody's dead, I'm on my way. And then they just walk in the house, you know what I mean? We don't have neighbors like that. So to be that neighbor that's just like walk in and like not immediately either pass out or just throw up, because kind of like Giga Chad kind of stuff, you know what I mean? It's just like stud of a dude to go up in there and see what's going on. But golly, would I have nightmares forever after that. Because I've seen some pictures of what it looked like, kind of right off the get-go. It'd be pretty rough to walk in on that, I'm not going to lie.
Well, that's not all, because then they go upstairs to find Abby, the stepmom, with 19 blows to the back of her head, laying on the floor in the guest bedroom. It was definitely a brutal scene. I could not imagine walking into that. I don't even know. That it's terrifying. Nobody initially suspected that Lizzie did it because, the neighbor met her outside screaming, and who would go outside screaming that somebody had been murdered if they did it,
Yeah.
And also she had no blood on her clothes. So they kind of, the first day that they were investigating this, they kind of scratched her off the list. They were like, no, she couldn't have done it. So since it was the 1800s, they didn't have any idea of DNA or forensics, so a bunch of police and people were coming through the crime scene and contaminating it all, which is just, it's great for a crime scene. Just everybody come on in, let's just ruin this crime scene.
Yeah.
So that's how a lot of cases, if you study true crime, a lot of cases back then were, because they didn't have any idea of DNA and forensics yet. Police found Abby had dried blood on her head while the dad had fresh blood. So it seemed that Abby had been murdered first, and then Andrew, the dad. They decided that this was a passionate crime due to how many wounds there were. This could not have been done by a stranger. They decided it had to have been done by somebody with intent and passion behind them that was angry and wanted to get all their frustration out. and did exactly that. That's when they push suspicion back onto Lizzie, due to being one of the only ones in the house at the time of the murder, um, which is also crazy to me because I don't know, like it's just so weird. If you think about it, Abby was killed first, then Andrew, and then you come out screaming that your dad's dead, and then you just happen to find Abby,
Yeah.
by the way, but she was killed first. And you were in the house all the time in your room. You didn't hear any of these murders going on.
Yeah, I know.
But so she was the only one in the house, so suspicion was pushed onto her, but Lizzie stayed strong in her story and didn't switch up her story, which a lot of people who are guilty of crimes will do. They'll say one thing and then backtrack or say something else. The scene of the crime was actually, even though it was brutal, it was very clean. Like, yes, there was blood splattered in the hallway, or not the hallways, the walls and stuff, and around the victims, but the hallways and the surrounding rooms and everything else was perfectly clean. So
That's what gets me. So picture this. I want to put on my best kind of like thinking. Sorry, I don't know. You guys probably can't hear this, but our dog Lucy. Remember the 8? If you remember from our first video, we talked about our 8-year-old little poodle dog. She is grumbling at us right now. She's probably really intrigued, trying to tell her piece, but won't give her the mic. She might say some bad things. Who knows? But listen to this. So this lady gets bashed, like knocked out, wham, 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 19 times in the back of the head in this room. And you said that there was no like blood everywhere.
there was blood like surrounding them and stuff, but like not in the hallways or like
So
in
like no
other
tracks.
no tracks.
Okay, so no tracks. Okay. So listen. So this is what I've got. And so there's no tracks. So you literally just see pool of blood, maybe a little bit of splattering, and bashed heads. That's all you see. You know what I mean? That's what gets me is that is like you just walk in and you're like, where did they go? Where did they go? Who are they? And where could they be now? You know, and like that's how I think is like if I was to walk in to this, like say it was in our home, some dude's dead on the floor. There's no tracks, no evidence to anything else of where that dude could be. It would freak me out because then I'm like, oh my goodness. So they came in, this pool of blood, nothing there. That's what I don't know. It's just strange to me to think about that. Somebody got their head bashed in, and nothing was done. Nobody could tell where they went, and whoever did it, which you said on. I'm trying to investigate this as as if I'm the private investigator. So you said that there was dried blood on the lady's head. At what point?
When they were investigating, they found that her blood was dried and his blood was still fresh.
So they investigated same day.
Yeah.
Same day. So like I don't know if you guys have ever like nicked yourself or something like that, but let's think of that. Let's think of that time right there. Like what happens? Like so sorry we had to pick her up. She was grumbling too much. It was about to explode. So hold on. Let me see if you guys can hear this. Never mind, she stopped. She's mic shy. Anyway, you done? I don't know if you, I don't know if you guys probably heard that at all, but anyway, we're trying to get her to talk. Anyway, sorry for all the interruptions. I'm a very squirrely kind of dude when it comes to stuff like this. But if you've nicked yourself in the past and you had that little scab, think of how, like, when it was like, oh my goodness, I'm bleeding, need a band-aid, to when it dried, turned into a scab. That's the kind of time that I think. But think of it probably double the time for it to dry. That's what gets me, is that somebody out there, like, that's what I don't get, is that I'm trying to think over this and mold this over in my own head, try to wrap my head around it. But imagine if you're in this house and the dude was on a couch, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
He was laying on a couch downstairs, right?
Yeah.
So the girl gets murdered upstairs and the guy downstairs still has fresh blood. Did the guy go up and see it? We won't know that because the dude's dead,
He
of
was
course.
napping.
He was napping.
Yeah.
So that's probably what happened. So who was the lady again?
Abby, the stepmom.
So the stepmom. And who is the girl that Lizzie Borden? Who is she?
She's the daughter.
She's the daughter. Who's the original mother?
We don't know.
So there could have been jealousy there. On top of that, is because she could have
She probably died.
Yeah, she probably died. But also think of this: they've been living a cheapskate life this whole time. Lizzie's been wanting to get into a better household and stuff like that, and she's been taking kind of what is hers. The stepmom probably gets after her. Think about this. Take this rabbit hole. The stepmom probably was not treating her in the best of interest.
No, and I said that Lizzie hated her.
Right. And so, listen, so something might have snapped. She might have, the stepmom might have told her, blah, 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 you're going to camp or something, right? Lizzie, in her head, since she's been stuck in this household, can't get out. How old is she at this time?
Let me figure that out.
Okay. Is she like teenager or is she older?
Let me figure that out.
Okay, she's going to figure it out. But think about it. Some people, especially in modern day, they just snap. Go crazy. Go stupid. They just do it. Because they think that's the right path. Lizzie might have been that person. And so when she thought, I'll just kill her.
She was 32.
Lizzie was 32?
Yeah.
I don't believe that.
Yeah, because it says she was born in 1860.
And when did the murder take place?
1892.
1892. She was 32? Okay, that's a completely different topic. I don't know. Either that or maybe, I don't know, I'm trying to think, what if Lizzie was trying to protect her biological father? Because maybe the stepmother had plans for the father. Because the father was rich. And so stepmother might have got tired of it. The soup could have been the catalyst. You know what I mean? The catalyst to this catastrophe. Stepmom was like, what could I do to get what is mine? We all know that, especially in today's world with divorces and stuff. It happens. Like, speaking of which, I'll tell you this. My mother and stepfather have been together forever, and they're really good. They're really good. They have a good marriage, and I'm not saying I don't like my stepfather. He's a really good guy. And speaking of which, he's going to get to work for SpaceX. They're moving to near South Padre Island, Texas. They don't have it made. Trust me, they got their own debt. Trust, I know. But their job is near there, and he gets to go to SpaceX. He's a cool dude. I like him. He's giving me a lot of life lessons that I wouldn't have if he wasn't around. But he was married before to his ex-wife, and so his retirement, because of the divorce decree, goes to the ex-wife, even though that they haven't even been married for well over, I think, 15 years now or more. That I don't know the accent. I just gave it time because I thought it was dramatic. But it's been a long time. But she's still going to get that retirement, even though he's not at the same job he was at when they were married and when the divorce happened. It's because of the government. Because the fact that his retirement is through the government, the ex-wife gets it all. Not my mother. And don't get me wrong, my mom's not going to murder him for the retirement. Trust that she's not like that. she'll be more devious about it. No, I'm just kidding. I love my mom. If you're listening, I love you, Mom. But it's just, that's how modern day is. Imagine back then when it was like that. You know what I mean? There's not a lot of technicalities like there are today. Back then, you could have just pow, pow, pow. Husband's dead. Give me all his stuff. It wouldn't have went into anything else. It would have went to the next head, which would have been the mother, the stepmother. Think about it. We're wrapping this back into it. What if the stepmother had a plan to kill the father to get the money? Lizzie found out and killed the stepmother. Went downstairs and was like, I've had it. I want the money. I want everything. I'm 32 now. I don't know what Lizzie does as a job or anything.
She didn't work.
She didn't work.
It was back then, like, women didn't work.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's right. So even then, how is she going to get what she wants? If the dad's a Scrooge, I'm going to get my money. So she murdered the stepmom and then murdered the dad downstairs. Who are they going to believe? They're going to think the daughter murdered both her parents? It's unheard of back in those times, maybe.
Well, we're going to get back into that because as of right now, we don't know who did.
Right, and that's what gets me on for the salt. Liz knows better. Not Lizzie. Liz knows better about me because I like to solve things before they ever get actually solved.
Well, there's more details.
I know, and I'm gonna go ahead and give it back to her because I don't know how much time I've talked, but I guarantee you I've gnawed a lot of your guys' ear off, and you probably clicked away, left. I'm gonna give it back to her.
All right, where was I? So, yeah, it was a passionate crime. This is where was I? Oh yeah, it was clean. Okay, here's another weird tidbit. The day after the murders happened, like the day after, Lizzie burned a dress. Like she just set fire to a dress outside. And people were like, "What are you doing?" And her sister Emma vouched for her and said that it was her idea, Emma's, to burn the dress because it had paint on it. And I don't know how believable that story is. Of, oh, a dress has paint on it, so we gotta burn it? I don't know. What do you think?
I think this is a Ponzi scheme. I'm just kidding. I don't know the quite definition of that, but she burns a dress literally the day after.
Yeah.
Do they have maids?
Yes.
How many?
One.
One maid. Suspicious. They burned a dress and got paint on it. So I mean, if the whole dress was like covered in it, understandable. Wouldn't want to be seen like that ever again. Covered in paint. Burn it. But it's strange that it was this literally the day after. Did they burn it outside?
Yeah.
So they burned it outside. Suspicious.
Yeah. Well, the police found out about the resentment in the family and the conflict in the family, and how Emma was the only person that Lizzie liked, and the murders conveniently took place the day that Emma left town. So that was another suspicious thing that happened that went against Lizzie in trial. Speaking of trial, June 5th, 1893 was the court hearing. It was the day it started. By this time, Lizzie was the key suspect because of all this stuff that had popped up about the dress burning and all the resentment in the family, and that she was the only one in the house, all that. And her story was all over the place now. It had made it all over the map, and it was because it was such a brutal scene for a woman to do because she was the key suspect now, and people were like, however could a woman kill people so brutally? Only a man can do that, you know? So it was back then when women were thought to be too frail and weak to do something like that. Emma testified for Lizzie in the trial, saying how sweet she was and kind-hearted she was and how she could never do that. Everybody testified for Lizzie except Lizzie herself. She refused to get on stand and testify for herself, which I think is a little odd that she refused. She was the only one that refused to not testify. It was Lizzie herself. In a court hearing to find out if she was guilty of the murders or not, she refused to testify. I just think that's a little strange.
I think it is too. That's why I think it was, like, if you think about it now, she might have got put up to it. You know what I mean? And so she's like, yeah, we're going to split the cash. And then the morality came in later on. How long between when the murder happened and the trial?
So the trial happened June 5th, 1893, and August 4th, 1892 was the murder.
When was the trial?
June 1893. So almost a year later.
Almost a year later?
Yeah.
That's what's crazy to me, is I guarantee, man, a year? That's crazy.
Yeah, and I don't just like how big of a story this is and how brutal the murders were. Like, why did it take so long to go to court with this?
That's what gets me, is it's a year later. I don't know. That's what's weird to me, is like, it's a year later. There's got to be some morality to it that kicked in. Maybe she was put up to it. Let's take down this rabbit hole. She was put up to it. They're going to get the money. They're going to split the cash, split the dough, and then as the year went on, she got too tired of it. It was getting to her. I just murdered my stepmother and my father. I just murdered my stepmother and my father. What am I doing? I'm crazy. And then like the trial happened, and she was like, I have to repent. I have to repent. Sorry, I'm thinking of I'm gonna be indicted. Indicted. Sorry, that's from a movie. At the end of this, after this, I'm gonna give you some movie recommendation. We'll call it Seth's movie time. But anyway, she probably like had some morality issues. Think about it. She like convicted herself because of redemption. Redemption.
Well, my thoughts are that, in the beginning, her story was really straight and she didn't switch up or anything. But that was because nobody thought of her as a suspect. And as time went on, people started thinking of her as the key suspect in this. And so I think she was afraid if she would go on stand, her story might not line up with what she told in the beginning, and they'd start asking her too many questions.
Yeah.
So that's my thought on it. During the trial, this is gross, but they brought the two skulls of Abby and Andrew into the courtroom to show as evidence, I guess. And Lizzie passed out, which, I mean, I don't blame her at all for passing out. That's pretty gruesome to see. It if you did it or not, really. Like, I don't know. That's I don't know why they would bring the actual skulls into the courtroom.
That's what's weird. Is so now that I know it's been a year since the murder and trial, they may have had time to decompose. And so, hold on, I want to see if you guys can hear this. Probably not. Our cat Mona is quite literally, right next to me, and she is having the time of her life. She's purring, napping. She's a very beautiful cat. She's just our little girl. Anyway, that'd give you some happy news because we're talking about all this brutality and skulls, and you're like, oh, it's gross. But it's weird to me to think that they had time to decompose, maybe, and they brought the skulls in. Like, who was the prosecutor on this? They're like, I got it. This will get her. Let's bring in the skulls. I mean, what better? As you can see here, this looks like a lump of rock, but actually, it's a skull that got bashed in 19 times. One here, 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 and then I can see. And Lizzie was just like, oh my gosh, what? Passed out. Done.
Well, and what if she didn't do it? Just think about how traumatizing that would have been to see your father's skull, like insanity.
Wait. Yeah, imagine if she didn't do it and it's just like everybody else is setting her up. I guarantee you've seen shows like that where this person quite literally did nothing. Was not living life, but just living, and got put up to this crime, and there they are, and all this bad stuff is happening around them. They don't even have time to grieve. I mean, they have a little bit of time to grieve, but not enough. And then you bring in quite literally, her father's skull that she's grieving over, and she's just like not only pass out due to the grossness, but pass out due to your just brain would hurt. You're disrespecting my father by taking his skull and bringing it in his skull. Well, just pass out. You know what I mean? I can see it now. I quite literally understand it.
Yeah. Well, the court case lasted 2 hours. And then that's it. It lasted 2 hours.
Hmm.
And at the end, Lizzie was found, drumroll, not guilty. She was found not guilty, and when they came to that verdict, the courtroom, everybody in the courtroom stood up and cheered for her. They were all so happy that she was found not guilty of it. Emma and Lizzie, the sisters, got $600,000 in settlement for the murders of their father and stepmother. With that money, Lizzie bought herself the huge house that she always wanted. She got to finally live in the life that she dreamt of since she was a child. She changed her name from Lizzie to Lizbeth and lived with her dogs. Evidently, she had a lot of dogs.
I would too if my whole family was murdered.
Yeah, she lived with her sister for a little bit, but Emma eventually moved out. And she never married. Lizzie Borden never married and died at an old age of pneumonia, I believe. So she kind of just lived her life, just lived it in that house, kept a quiet life after all this, and did her own thing with her dogs. So that's that. Now we're going to get into the theories of who did it. So the first one, the obvious one, is that Lizzie did it. Some more things that can what's the word? Add to it that she might have done it herself was that when investigating, the police found out that Lizzie tried to get puric acid from her doctors, saying that she needed it to clean her sealskin coats. So she had 2 coats made of sealskin, evidently. And she said that puric acid was what she needed to clean them. And she got mad when the doctors told her no, that this is not what we do here. We're not going to just give you puric acid. And yeah, she got very upset about that. They also found an axe in the attic that fit the wounds. Although it was just the head of the axe, the handle was nowhere to be found, and they have their theories that it might have been thrown into that fire that when she burned her dress. So that's more reasons why she might have been guilty. Another theory is that Bridget, the maid, did it because she was the only other person at home besides Lizzie. So, like, I just have questions about the maid. I'm a little skeptical of her. Like, nobody really talks about the maid. But, like, what was she doing? And where was she? Like, she just, like, came in to the house and was like, what's going on, guys? Oh my gosh, what's happening? Where are all these police here? Oh my gosh, my bosses got murdered? Like, where was her? Like, where was she this whole time? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Because it's just like, where was she? And was she actually gone?
Well, she was at the house.
When it happened?
Yeah.
The maid?
Yeah.
She was there.
Yeah. She was cleaning.
What?
Yeah.
Why didn't you say this before?
I did.
When?
Earlier.
What? Well, this sucks. I thought my theory was golden. Apparently not. So, the maid was there. They don't have vacuums back in the time, so she couldn't be like. Meanwhile, upstairs, someone's getting their head bashed in. You know what I mean? And honestly, if you think about it, you're like, well, how did you not hear the screams? I'm like, for one, if you got whacked, like absolutely mollywopped in the back of the head, you're not going to go, ah, ah. It's going to be like, and you're out like a light. It's going to be exhale a breath, you're on the floor. Because if you, I watch fights and stuff like that, and I watch a lot of stuff related to that kind of thing, and it's not like when somebody gets hit, they go they go ugh, and it's quiet because they literally get knocked out. Their body exhales, it's over. And I don't know how deep these gashes were into the back of their head, but if they were as gruesome as they looked in the pictures, that first blow, donezo. And in the father's case, since he was napping, there would have been no sound. He was dead before he had time to wake up. Or maybe he kind of woke up like a zombie, but there was nothing he could do. His head was getting bashed in. How many bashes were in his head?
10 to 15, I think.
Okay. Yeah. 10 to 15 times. That is a lot. Trust. So, like I said earlier, there's no vacuum that could have been going at this time. You know, it's not like she had the Hoover going and, just vacuuming everything so she couldn't hear. But,
Well, and they had a small house because he was so cheap.
yeah, so it's not like she was across the 400 or 4,000 square foot home, through 5 inches of insulation in each wall. No, it was a cheap house. I saw the house. It was tiny.
Yeah.
So it's like, to me, I mean, if you really wanted to, you can't quite comprehend how that sounds. For one, a head getting bashed in with an axe, because pardon me, it's not going to sound like me banging on a wall. If I go and bang on a wall, that's not what a head's going to sound like. If you smack yourself in the back of the head, that's closely what it would sound like. So she couldn't hear it happen. Now, if the perpetrator was making sounds, maybe, but being a 32-year-old woman at that, killing somebody, there had to have been a little bit of noise. Maybe a little bit. So she had to hear it. I'm talking in one sense here. But on top of that, the maid was there. And nobody's talked about the maid's dresses. And was it, instead of Lizzie's dress, a maid's dress? Because you can't tell when whose dress it is and what color it is when it's on fire. You know what I mean? So it's like,
But Lizzie burned it.
that's the thing. Lizzie lived with her father until 32 years of age. Think, huh? Wouldn't she take every bit of advice from her father and mother? What is she going to do if she has no one to console with when they're dead? Who is she going to go to console?
Her sister Emma.
Or
the maid.
The maid. Think about it. I don't know what to do. My father is dead. My mother is dead. Hey, Miss Maid. What was her name? The maid?
Bridget.
Hey, Bridget, I have this dress. Or the maid's like, hey, I need your help. I am distraught. Help me to burn this dress because it's got paint on it. Oh, okay, it's one of your dresses. Maybe she didn't know. She's distraught. Her parents just got killed. You know what I mean? So she's going to be out of mind, out of body thing. So she's just going to kind of do what told. She doesn't know what to do. And so on top of that, the acid thing, that could have been something since she doesn't know. They have a maid, and the maid could have been like, I need you to grab this from the store. Your father used to get this to clean this coat. I need you to go grab it. Okay. Goes to the doctor. They get the acid. They don't give her the acid. How am I going to clean my coats? My father did this. My maid does this. I can't get it. Therefore, I can't clean my coats. I'm mad. There's that. You know, if she was maniacal enough to make all this make sense, she could have murdered him. But if you think about it, she could have been just a tool used to try to escape it. Because guess what? They never. Who did they not take to trial? The maid. Literally the only other person that was in the house at that time, correct?
Yeah.
Why didn't she go on trial? Why did the daughter go on trial? Because she was set up. The burned dress, the acid. That happened all before the trial started, correct?
Yes.
So, I mean, the maid could have done it. She's a big suspect and ticket item. Nobody knows. And what happened to the maid after all this? Did she walk away with anything?
No.
Didn't think so. Did Lizzie hire that same maid?
I don't know.
We don't know. Exactly. The maid knows what goes on in the household. If you have enough money and you have a maid, that girl's gonna know more than you think she knows. 'Cause them walls are thin and they got good ears. Trust. So they know that the dad had money. And who's gonna walk away with money? Either the sister or Lizzie. So I'm gonna go live with them. And I know they're gonna use the money because they haven't got to use it yet. So there you go. And if the sister hired her, there you go. I guarantee if the daughters had no idea, or if the sister and Lizzie had suspicion they wouldn't have given her money, they would probably got murdered. But I think she was set up. Because think about it. She probably had ways to get, that maid had ways to get the money, even if they convicted Lizzie of the crime. The sister would have got it. Therefore, she could have went and got hired by the sister to be the maid. Therefore, done.
Well, there's one other theory. Uncle John did it.
Uncle John?
Yeah. There was a dispute between Uncle John, you know, the uncle that was visiting at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and the dad about real estate. Because Uncle John goes to Andrew and is like, hey, so I know you have all this real estate and I heard you're giving it away to random family members and stuff. How about me? And Andrew goes, not you. I'm not giving you any. And he was like, well, you're going to regret that. And he did. And he maybe paid Bridget off to clean the house after the murders happened and that's why the scene of the crime was so clean.
Whoa. Huh. That would have been nuts. That could have worked. Maid hasn't seen any of that 10 mil. Was it 10 mil?
Well, that was how much he had, but
Right.
they got a $600,000 settlement in the court case, but
The sisters did.
yeah.
But where did the rest go?
I don't know. That's what I don't know. I don't know where all of his real estate went to.
What about Uncle John? That's the brother, the only other household member. John. Think about it. I mean, that could have worked. Don't get me wrong. But if the maid did it, she knew how. She could have been there first on the scene, cleaned, done. Because she would already been on top of it. If Uncle John was in the house, was he in the house at the time?
No, he was out. He was out buying 2 oxen.
Really?
Yeah.
How far away?
He was just in the town.
In town. Strange. It's crazy that they don't put that in there okay, your Uncle John was out buying auction. What was Lizzie doing at this time?
She was in her bedroom ironing clothes.
She was in her bedroom ironing clothes. Could have happened, like I said earlier, there wouldn't have been a lot of noise happening at this time. So, I mean, ironing the clothes could have been a valuable thing, but how far was the mother's bedroom from Lizzie's bedroom, and how far was the napping room from Lizzie's bedroom?
I don't know. I mean, it was a small house because I've seen the house on video before, and it was pretty small.
So, in my opinion, this is what I think, is that, I mean, if she's in there ironing clothes, right, how do they iron clothes back then? They heated up an iron, literally just a piece of iron, because at that time I don't think they had steamers like we do now. They had to heat up that iron on a stove, and that's how they ironed it. So there had to have been a fire, right? Or a stove that had a fire in it, right?
Yeah.
So if that's the case, that fire could have made a little extra noise in the room, causing it to where she couldn't hear through. Uncle John could have actually not been in town, went out the back, and went into town afterwards. Dumped the clothes along the way, changed into something else at his own home, or I don't know how far he lived from. That there's details that I need to kind of piece this together that they don't have or don't even talk about, but that could have worked. He killed him. Okay, I need to kill the. The crazy thing about that is so why would Uncle John kill the mother first? Because her blood was dried, right? And there's other cases like in science, if you think about it this way, that okay, this blood and this blood were taken at the exact same time from 2 different people, but this one dried quicker due to a lack of something in the blood or water to dry. Same thing with back in the day. Think about it this way. To the guys that are listening and the girls that are listening, have you had a headache and you're like, man, my head really hurts? When was the last time you had water? Sorry, just had to say so, because Liz does it all the time. Man, I got a headache. When was the last time you had water? Ooh. Drink more water, Liz. So, that could have worked, but why would he kill the mother first? That's what gets me, is why would she go first? That's what I don't understand. Hi, Bandit.
Well, if you think about it, the dad was napping. So he was out. He was not going to walk in on anybody. You know what I mean? But Abby, she was awake. She was alert. She could have walked in on the murder happening to him. So she had to be taken out first.
True. That makes sense. I mean, yeah, take out the witnesses. That makes more sense. I can see how this works. So in my mind, it could have been. I really think the maid had something to do with it, because there's no way for them to just not be a part of it, especially with the maid moving throughout this small house. You know, why is the maid not dead? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because Lizzie's in one room ironing clothes, door shut, door open. Who knows? Because I don't know where this room is facing. But the maid moves around the house cleaning. What was the maid doing at that very time?
Yeah. I don't know.
So the maid had to have been moving around the house. If Uncle John was to murder somebody, I would think it would be the mother first, then or the maid first, then the mother, then the dad. But in this case, it seems like Uncle John paid to have it cleaned or worked out a deal with her or the maid to essentially clean up after him, and she got a lump sum of something. That's for sure, and especially afterwards.
Yeah. Well, that concludes the story of Lizzie Borden. Now we're going to move on to some movie recs.
So to kind of wrap this up, definitely go on YouTube and check out some of the theories on there, because there's some other people that talk about it a little bit more in depth and have video and pictures and such on there. Oh my goodness, this is our longest episode yet. We're almost at an hour, guys. So in my mind, this is what I think. Go watch some of some of the other podcasts out there, because we're not saying we're not going to be like nothing but ours and be stingy. We're not like this. Is the Boredom Club, dude. We just chill out, talk about some stuff, see what you guys think. Comment down below about what you think kind of happened during this. Give us what you think for real. If you think the maid did it, put down in there M for maid. If you think Uncle John did it, go after Uncle John. If you think Lizzie really did it, put down an L. Okay? So I'm gonna give you some movies to kind of watch, because we watched some last night. And what movies did we watch?
We watched Wanderlust and we watched what was it?
Dick and Jane. So if you don't know who Jim Carrey is, get out from under your rock, grab a pair of sunglasses, because it's gonna be bright for you, and go watch Dick and Jane. Great movie, great storyline. Wanderlust is another one that we watched. It has oh Ant-Man. What's his name?
Paul Rudd.
Paul Rudd and
Paul Rudd.
Paul Rudd. Oh, and then who's the lady?
Jennifer Aniston.
The girl from Friends. So they are in it, and it's really good. It's really funny, and if it has some nudity, so be prepared. Don't have your kids around. It's pretty funny. It's a weird movie, and definitely just a funny movie to watch. Dick and Jane, also a really good funny movie to watch, because it's great, and it kind of makes you think what you guys should do, especially in today's economy. But also on top of that, sorry, our dog just finally showed up. Bandit, he loves hugs, so he wallers all over you. But definitely go check out this movie that I have been thinking about a lot. It's called The Green Book. It's about a musical artist or pianist that was back in the time when, slavery was not necessarily becoming a thing, and he was trying to make his life known in the world, and he needed a driver. Where he got Tony the Lip to drive him around. It's a very good and wholesome movie. It does have some scenes in it that I don't recommend, because of, you know, fallacies and words and stuff like that. But it's a really good tale about friendship, or people who you least expect could be your best friend for life. Because matter of fact, I'll give you this. This doesn't really tie into it, but they ended up dying a month apart. I'll give you that, and they were best friends. But you need to watch the tale of how they became to what they were, and they're really good people. On top of that, there's another movie. I'm trying to think of the name of it. It's been clicking around in my head all day long. Um. Oh. Oh. The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. It really goes to show what you kind of have, especially nowadays, and what people don't have, is that Walter Mitty was a guy that worked for Time magazine, working in the negative department, where they take film, they develop the negatives and put it into the magazine, and then put it through. It's a very, it's the department that you would never go to. It's almost like talking to an IT team at a corporate company. You never see them, and so this man lived this very dull life, but had the imagination that would take you somewhere else. And the videography in the movie really goes to show how far Walter Mitty's imagination was trying to break him out of this cycle, and he ends up going on this adventure to find this negative that his friend that has taken this picture wants to put in Time magazine, but they can't seem to find it. And so Walter Mitty, being the one that's the head of the team, needs to find it. And so what does he do? He finally breaks out of where he's at, the shell that he's in, out of his comfort zone, and goes. Not only to just grab the negative, but to see the wonder of the world. And instead of us seeing more and more biography of Walter Mitty's imagination, it's more of Walter Mitty's life that we're seeing happening right before our eyes. It's not just something that he dreamt, it's something that is. And so that's what really got me into that movie a lot, and it really makes me have not not necessarily hope, but dream of what can be and what is. And it keeps it to where there's a point in our life that we have lost something so precious to us that we had as kids that we don't have now, which is a sense of wonder. And that sense of wonder is what keeps us going. And a lot of people nowadays don't have it. But it doesn't take much to just leave a little bit of wonder in your life. So if you want to keep that little bit of wonder, I want you to go watch The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. If you want that little bit of laugh, go watch Dick and Jane. And then if you want to kind of cap the night off with a nice, good, serious, good movie to watch with somebody or watch by yourself, watch The Green Book. Definitely some good movie recommendations. I'll definitely try to give you more. I watch movies all the time with Liz, and I just think watch movies on my own. It's just they tell tales that you wouldn't just hear from somebody, but you can see happening. And so I like movies like that. Anyway, we've kind of come up on 1 hour. Woo! High five!
Yeah. All right, we're going to wrap it up for today, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Definitely comment anything you want down below, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye!
Bye.